It begins in the hush of morning, before the stables stir, before the kitchens warm their hearths, before even the priests begin their muttered prayers to gods carved into lintels and minds alike. The falconer wakes alone, not out of duty, not out of obligation, but because the birds do, and they call to him, not with song or cry, but with presence. Their eyes blink open beneath leather hoods. Clawed feet shift on their perches. Feathers rustle like a page being turned gently by wind. He lives behind the mews, in a small thatched cottage barely larger than a grain shed, where the air always smells faintly of leather, salt, and the cold iron scent of raw meat. His name is Ewan, though few use it. Most call him Glove, or Feather Hand, or simply nod when they pass him on the castle path. He is not unliked. He is merely peripheral. Like the birds he trains, he exists close enough to serve, but distant enough to forget. Ewan stretches before the hearth, where a few embers still pulse with warmth from last night's fire. He does not bother to stoke it. The morning is not for comfort. The morning is for the falcons. The mews creak as he unlatches the door, careful not to startle the roost. Inside, the darkness stirs with faint sound, soft rustles of feathers, the occasional click of a beak, the creaking sway of wooden perches, shifting as the weight on them adjusts. He moves with a silence born from years of training, less like a man, more like another shadow in the falcon's world. Each bird has a name, though few outside the mews know them. There is Bracken, the old tearsill with one pale eye and a beak, chipped in 3 places. Bracken is a hunter still, though slower than before. Then there's Sable, a restless female peregrine with feathers so dark they seem to swallow the torchlight whole. And young Ash, the new Ias, just beginning to understand that the glove means meat, and the whistle means return. Ewan feeds them in order, never rushing, never breaking the rhythm they expect. A cube of rabbit, a strip of venison, a careful inspection of talons and jesses. He hums to them, low and tuneless, a sound that means nothing to humans and everything to hawks. The world beyond the mews is beginning to wake. From his perch at the edge of the castle's western walls, Ewan can hear it all in fragments. The clang of iron on stone as the blacksmith lights his forge, the laughter of kitchen girls fetching water from the well, a distant whistle that might be a guard calling to his dog. None of it pulls him. His world is smaller, quieter, more precise. The king's court, by contrast, is a place of ceaseless noise. It begins with ceremony and ends with wine. Messengers arrive and depart with urgency sculpted into their faces. Nobles strut like cockerels in brocade and velvet. Even the pages, barely old enough to hold a sword upright, speak with the importance of men twice their size. Ewan avoids the court when he can. He prefers birds. Birds don't lie, but today he must go. A summons came last evening, delivered by a boy with hair too clean to be trusted. His Majesty wishes a flight, the boy had said, in the crisp tones of someone born indoors. He asks for your swiftest. Boy had then held out his palm for a coin he did not receive. So Ewan walks now through the courtyards and corridors, sable hooded on his wrist, wings twitching with anticipation. Beneath the falconry mantle, she is anxious, today. Or maybe he is. Either way, the feeling spreads like frost over morning grass quiet. Cold and inevitable. The king is already in the hunting field when Ewan arrives. A small gathering waits around him, lords, ladies, a jester pretending not to shiver. The king wears fur-lined boots and a red cloak heavy enough to smother a fire. His face is pale and long, his beard carefully trimmed to suggest ruggedness without allowing actual roughness. He greets Ewan with a nod and a wave. "This is the one?" he asks, gesturing at Sable with a gloved hand. "She is," Ewan replies. "Fast, keen, and sharped. Like my treasurer," the king says with a chuckle, and the surrounding nobles echo the laugh. Delayed but obedient, Ewan says nothing. The flight is ceremonial, a performance more than a hunt. A rabbit is released from a wicker crate. It darts forward, ears low, eyes wild. Sable launches with a cry, the air slicing past her wings in a sound that could be mistaken for song. She rises, banks, and turns like thought itself. The crowd murmurs, impressed, but Ewan watches the sky. Not the rabbit, not the falcon. Not the faces of nobility trying to pretend they understand what they're seeing. He watches the way the wind shifts the cloud edges, the way Sable's wings tilt slightly toward the east. He knows she's making a correction. The sun is high. There is heat in the air, even in early spring. Thermals will rise. She climb, then dive. She does. The rabbit doesn't scream. It doesn't have time. There is just a flutter of dust, a soft thud, and then silence. Sable stands over her kill, wings flared, eyes fierce. The king applauds. "Marvelous," he cries. "Magnificent." And once again, Ewan says nothing. He only walks forward, retrieves the bird, and offers her a scrap of reward. Her feathers settle, her eyes close. The hood goes on, and the world becomes silent once more. After the ceremony, the court disperses like leaves in wind. Only the king lingers, his boots crunching frost as he approaches. "She's yours?" he asks. "She answers to me," Ewan replies. "I'd like another like her," the king says. "Train one for me." Ewan pauses. "It takes time." "I have time," the king says. "What I lack is loyalty." That, Ewan thinks, is not something a falcon can be trained to give. But he only nods. Back at the mews, he finds Ash pacing. On the perch, the young falcon is restless again. Too much energy, not enough direction. Much like the kingdom, Ewan thinks. It's always the young ones who burn the brightest stand, the shortest. He lets Ash out. The bird doesn't hesitate. He launches into the air with a screech, looping, diving, rising again, not hunting just, flying for the love of sky. Ewan watches with the quiet ache of someone who once wanted to be a knight and learned he preferred birds. There had been a war once, long ago, before he wore the glove, before the crown had settled on its current brow. Ewan had fought. He had killed. He had watched friends die with their names stuck in his throat like broken arrows. After the war, there had been a choice: keep fighting or serve peace. He chose the birds. That night, the wind picks up. The shutters rattle softly. The birds sleep with heads tucked under wings, except for Sable, who wakes mid-dream and clicks her beak at shadows only she can see. Ewan stokes the fire, not for warmth, but for habit. Outside in the great hall, the king feasts. There is talk of rebellion in the north, of unrest in the cities, of taxes unpaid and banners raised. The wine flows anyway. There is always wine. Ewan sharpens his knife, not for violence, for the next meal. A falconer thinks in hours, in seasons, in migrations. The court thinks in days, in decrees, in deaths. Somewhere between the two is where Ewan lives. Not quite noble, not quite common, just a man with a glove, a whistle, and a bird who kills when told. But something is changing. He can feel it in the way bracken growls in sleep, in the way ash refuses the hood, in the way sable, silent and steady sable, keeps staring at the sky, with a hunger that has nothing to do with food. And in the castle above, the king dreams of power, while in the mews below, something older sharpens its talons. Morning does not come softly this time. It crashes in with sleet and wind, slapping the shutters and hissing through the cracks in the stone. Ewan wakes to the sound of the mews groaning, the ropes of the perch lines straining against the weight of agitated birds. He does not stretch, he does not sigh. He rises the way old stones rise after centuries of snows low, heavy, inevitable. He wraps his cloak tight and steps into the yard where the sky hangs low and grey like it's thinking something cruel. The air is sharp enough to sting the eyes. A rook croaks in the tree near the north wall, louder than it ought to be for a bird so small. Ewan doesn't look up, he just listens. It's not the rook's call that bothers him. It's that it's still calling again and again, like it's warning something. The mews are restless. Ash is pacing again, his talons clicking fast on the beam like tapping fingers on a table before a confession. Bracken growls low in his chest, feathers puffed in warning. Sable is motionless but alert. Her head tilts slightly as Ewan enters, not toward him, but toward the far field. Something unseen, something still. Ewan does what he always does. He feeds them, checks their hoods, adjusts the straps. But his fingers move differently today, a fraction slower. His thoughts drift. He sharpens a knife, not because it is dull, but because routine is safer than curiosity. Outside, the wind shifts direction. By mid-morning, a rider comes. Not one of the king's men, this one wears neither badge nor banner. His cloak is travel-stained and wet at the hem, and his horse foams at the flank. He says nothing to the guards, just hands a sealed letter to the steward and turns back the way he came. Ewan watches from the mews window, unnoticed as always, unseen in plain sight. The steward reads. His face does not change, but his pace quickens as he walks toward the keep. Inside, things begin to move faster. Doors open, footsteps echo, swords are checked, armor oiled. Quietly, efficiently, like a hearth being banked for heat, not flame. Ewan sharpens another blade. That afternoon, he is summoned. Not to the hunting fields, not to the falcon court, to the king himself. He is led through the side corridor's quiet halls, draped in tapestries no one has dusted in years. Rooms lined with spears from forgotten wars and shields too cracked to use but too noble to discard. Ewan's boots leave prints on the stone. The king waits by a fire that burns too high for the room's size. His cloak is gone. His tunic bears a stain at the cuff wine or blood, hard to say. A map lies open on the table, pinned at the corners with knives. The room smells faintly of ink, leather, and fear. I need your birds, the king says. Number, greeting, no formality. Just need. Ewan says nothing. Not for the hunt, the king continues. For the border, for the passers, for the windbreaks where riders vanish. You want eyes, Ewan replies. I want wings that carry news faster than horses. Ewan nods. It is possible. He's done it before. Carried scrolls. Sent warnings. Falcons trained to fly to fire, to return at horn call. But this is not peacetime correspondence. This is preparation. There's movement, the king says. In the north, banners, smoke, whispers carried south like frost on steel. Ewan looks at the fire. Do you want truth or comfort? The king exhales slowly. I want warning, so Ewan prepares. That night, long after the corridors fall silent, he selects 3 birds. Not the youngest, not the strongest, the smartest. Bracken, old but sharp. Lyra, small but tireless. And Flint, the kestrel, who once found his way back from a storm that grounded every other bird in the MEWS. He lays the message tubes out on the table. Copper rings, hollowed bone, scraps of parchment thinned to the width of breath. He writes the first notes himself, coordinates numbers, names, short words, fast words, flight dash words. At dawn, the birds are released. 1 to the east, 1 to the cliffs, 1 to the merchant roads. They fly like they understand. No noise, no ceremony, just motion. That is the language Ewan trusts most. For days, he hears nothing. The mews are quieter now, not empty, but expectant, like something has been drawn tight and is waiting to be loosed. The guards along the walls change shifts faster. The kitchens cook more meat than usual. The blacksmith's hammer rings at night. Ewan walks the paths no one else walks, past the orchard where the king's daughter once fell from a tree and never spoke again, past the old chapel, now used only for storage, its altar covered in dust and unspoken prayers, past the burial mound where the last king was placed, wrapped in gold and secrets. Each step is a memory, each turn a history. Then, on the 7th day, Bracken returns. His wing is bloodied, his feathers clumped, but he lands true on the post, on the glove, with a dignity only age can grant. Ewan doesn't waste a second. He slides the message tube from his leg, unrolls the parchment. 5 words. They ride before the frost. It is not a warning, it is a deadline. That night, the king's hall fills with noise. Metal on metal, boots on stone, orders barked, maps redrawn, men summoned, names shouted. The war is no longer an idea. It is a sound now, echoing in every hall. Ewan does not enter. He listens from the doorway and then returns to the mews. Sable is waiting. She has not flown in days. Her wings twitch, her head tilts. She knows the world is shifting. He sharpens a new blade, not for the birds, for himself, because the border is not far, and falconers, no matter how quiet, are sometimes called to stand. In the days that follow, more riders come, some with messages, some with wounds, all with urgency. The court shifts its center. Nobles argue softly in the corners of great rooms. Servants move in pairs. The queen does not appear. The jester stops laughing, and Ewan, as always, watches. Ash is growing stronger. No longer the pacing hours, now a sleek-winged shadow that lands where he wills, not just where he's told. Ewan flies him daily now, in longer and longer arcs, past the river, past the edge of the woods, past the line where forest becomes something deeper. The bird always returns, but each time it takes longer. One evening, Ash returns with a torn feather and something in his eye Ewan has not seen before. Hesitation. Ewan waits, watches, and then, gently, removes a fragment of thread from the bird's talon. Not a vine, not a snare, a braid. Human, someone is setting traps in the sky. The message is given. The king listens. The nobles do not. They scoff behind rings and wine cups, whispering that birds are not banners. But the steward listens. The steward always listens. And one morning, the guards along the northern wall double, quietly, without announcement. Ewan flies Flint again, this time with fire dye on his feathers, so they can track the route from the towers. He flies fast, then faster, and never returns. The court mourns a bird like it mourns a candle. Briefly, and only if someone of rank noticed the light. But Ewan stands on the wall longer than any other that night, eyes fixed on the horizon, as though waiting for something he already knows will not come. In the distance, a thunderstorm gathers. Not natural, not yet, but it will be. And the Mews are restless. Ash does not sleep that night. Neither does Ewan. Somewhere beyond the tree line, something moves like an army without banners, without drums, without the arrogance of noble war. Just silence, and breath, and steel. And still, the falcons stare at the sky. There is no sunrise the next morning, only a slow grey shift from shadow to dimness. Light, if it can be called that, bleeds weakly through the clouds, painting the courtyard in ash and damp. The world has become quieter, not with peace, but with the kind of stillness that settles over places waiting for thunder. Ewan stands at the edge of the mews with his glove hanging empty, Sable perched beside him like a carving from darker wood. Ash has not returned to the glove since the thread incident. He perches high now, alone, ignoring calls, ignoring whistles. He watches the treetops, tilting his head as if listening to something only birds can hear. The falcons are not hungry. They leave food untouched, feathers tight to their sides, talons tapping gently, uneasily. Bracken no longer growls. He sits motionless, eyes closed, like a prophet waiting for the shape of fire. Flint has not returned, but the message he carried is clear. Something is moving in the dark, not with speed, but with certainty. Ewan feels it each time the wind shifts direction. The king has begun consulting the steward behind closed doors. Pages scurry back and forth through the keep at all hours. The nobles, once loud and filled with wine and laughter, are now measured in their movements, like dancers on a narrowing stage. Ewan watches it all from the fringes. He has always lived in the quiet places, behind stone walls and barn doors, between the feather and the storm. But something is pulling him forward now, not duty, not loyalty, a kind of gravity. The birds feel it too, and Ash, once unruly, now watches Ewan with an intensity that hums. That afternoon, Ewan walks the full, outer path of the castle. It takes him nearly an hour. The guards nod as he passes, though some glance away quickly, pretending not to see the leather glove still fastened to his belt, its worn edge darker than the rest, as if touched too often by blood or memory. Northern gate is open, just slightly, a gap wide enough for one man. Beyond it, the land drops into a valley where old oaks stand like sentries, and the ground rises into unseen ridges. Ewan pauses there. He remembers walking that way once, years ago, before the birds, before the silence. He was younger then, quicker, angrier. But even then, the road felt older than it should have, as if it had been used for something it didn't. Like to remember, now it calls to him again. He returns to the mews and begins preparing. Not for flight, for travel. Sable watches him. She knows. He selects 3 birds. Not Ash, not Bracken. Sable, yes. And 2 others. Myra, the golden-eyed female who has never missed a mark. And Thorn, the small but relentless goshawk who once flew for 3 days across snow without landing. These are not birds for ceremony. These are for signal and survival. He packs light, a short blade, waxed parchment, a flask of bitter root oil, the glove, the whistle, the strips of raw meat wrapped in cloth. And then he sets out before sundown, saying nothing to the guards, leaving no note. He walks through the gap in the northern gate as if the wind asked him to. The road feels colder outside the walls. The air tastes of moss and iron. Somewhere, in the trees, an owl stirs early, not hunting, watching. Ewan moves steadily, not quickly, not stealthily, just forward. He does not flinch when branches snap or when birds scatter overhead. The world is already changing. He is only catching up. By nightfall, he reaches the old outpost at Briarcrest. It is half ruined, ivy crawling over stone like time reclaiming what memory forgot. No fires burn, no banners fly, but there are signs, scraps of canvas, tracks in the mud, marks carved into the doorframe in a dialect no court ever taught. He does not enter the outpost. He circles it once, then twice, until the trees feel too close and the wind too still. Then he whistles 3 notes, sharp, ascending. Sable launches into the sky. Mira follows. Thorn waits on his shoulder, alert. They arc wide, wheeling against the moonlight. Ewan kneels ear to the ground. Nothing moves. And yet the stillness feels loud. Minutes pass. Then Sable returns, wings tight, eyes sharper than before. Mira does not. Thorn lifts suddenly, unbidden, and takes off toward the eastern ridge. Ewan watches, heart sinking. Something is hunting his birds. He doesn't wait. He follows Thorn, running now, boots sliding on wet stone, cloak snapping behind him. The path narrows. Brambles grab at his knees. The ridge rises fast, steeper than it looks. At the top, he halts. Thorn hovers, below them in the shallow basin. Between ridges, a small fire burns. Not large, not bright, just enough to cast shadows. Around the fire sit 3 figures, not armored, not cloaked, just still. Ewan doesn't move, doesn't breathe. One of them turns. It's Mira, but something is wrong. She does not blink. She does not stir. She is perched on a wooden crossbeam like a trained bird, but she is no longer flying free. The figure beneath her wears a leather glove, not Ewan's. The man rises slowly. He is tall, hooded. His face is pale in the firelight, drawn tight like old parchment. He says nothing. He just raises his hand and snaps his fingers. Myra flies to him. Ewan steps back once. Then again, Thorn lands on his shoulder, tense wings. Half dash open. The man speaks softly. You're late. Ewan does not answer. You sent birds to places no longer yours. The man continues. Places we reclaimed while your king played at peace. Ewan narrows his eyes. They're not your birds. They are now, the man replies, as you will be. There is a sound behind Ewan, leaves shifting, a breath in the wrong place. He turns just in time. 2 more men emerge from the trees. No swords, no armor, but hands like stone and eyes that have seen too much. Ewan runs, not away. Through, he slams into the first man. Shoulder down, a falconer's tackle that drops both of them to the ground. Thorn launches into the second's face, screaming. Feathers and blood fly. Ewan doesn't pause. He breaks left, down the slope, through mud and root and branches that whip his face. He hears nothing, not pursuit, not command, only the beat of wings overhead and the thrum of panic in his chest. He doesn't stop until the sky turns pale again at the river's edge. He falls to one knee. Thorn circles once, then lands on a fallen log, watching. Sable returns, moments later. Exhausted, Myra does not follow. Ewan knows he cannot return to the castle empty-handed, but he also knows what he saw. And what he saw was not a rival king, not a foreign army. It was a man with a glove and a bird that used to be his. A falcon turned against its master. A message far louder than any scroll. He writes nothing that day. He does not send word. Instead, he sharpens his blade, not out of fear, but because he knows what must come. Next dot, not retreat, not warning. A reclaiming dot, somewhere beyond the pass. Men are building a kingdom from whispers and firelight, and they are training birds. His birds, he will take them back. The river speaks all night, a low mumble of current and stone, dragging old branches and half-frozen weeds past the bank where Ewan keeps his back to the trees. Sleep does not come. He does not close his eyes. Not since Myra vanished. Not since he saw the other glove. The one that mimicked his own but wore cruelty like a second skin. Sable perches in a twisted ash tree behind him. Silent, her feathers pulled tight to her sides. Thorn sleeps half-curled near his pack, wings twitching occasionally like he dreams of air and talon. Ewan sharpens his knife again, not because it's dull, but because the rhythm steadies his hands. He can't forget the sound Myra made as she flew. Not panic, not warning, just silence. A bird obeying someone else. At sunrise, frost coats everything, the grass, the stones, the leather of his glove. The wind is sharp and carries no scent. That worries him. Sable hops closer. She senses it too. The air is too clean, like something has wiped it down. Ewan doesn't light a fire. He eats a handful of dried meat and nothing more. Thorn takes a strip and gulps it whole. They move east, along the river, following a trail that only the birds seem to know. Every so often, Sable lifts into the air, circles once, then returns. She is his compass now. By midday, they reach the old bridge at It's barely a bridge anymore, just 3 slats of warped timber and a single post still bearing a broken sigil. The other side is a different country, not by law, not by map, but by feel. The trees lean closer. The earth sinks lower. The light bends oddly through the canopy, like it's being filtered through water. Ewan crosses anyway. The forest on the far bank swallows them immediately. Sound shifts. Footsteps fall quieter. Birdsong fades to something thinner, more distant. Once, a branch snaps behind him. He turns, blade drawn, but there's no one. Only Sable watching him, her talons clenched a little tighter than usual. Hour later, he finds the trap. It's not for deer. It's not for wolves. It's made of bone and cord and something that smells faintly like burned cloves. At the center is a perch, a falconer's perch, but wrong. Too small, too narrow. Meant not for resting, but for display. There's no blood, that's worse. He marks the location with a strip of red cloth and moves on. Farther in, he begins to see signs feathers stuck to tree bark, scratch marks on low branches, the occasional glint of something metallic hidden beneath moss, a bird pin, a message tube, cracked and empty. Each step is quieter now, each breath a question. The wind has changed again. It no longer moves with the trees. It moves against them. Then Sable stops. Not pauses, stops. Frozen. Head tilted. Ewan follows her gaze and sees it. A wooden frame, simple, rough, barely standing. It's shaped like a falconer stand, but surrounded by stones in a circle, each, marked with old runes and wrapped in feathers bound with ash string. It is not a medged arse, it is a shrine dot to what he doesn't know. Sable does not move. Thorn growls softly. He approaches. The air within the circle is different, colder, quieter, as if sound refuses to enter. Ewan kneels beside the central post. Beneath the soot and moss, he sees a mark, not Norse, not royal. A falcon's claw, etched into wood with a blade that shook. Next to it scratches, numbers, names, coordinates. He knows the places. The northern outpost, the western cliffs, the merchant pass, all places his birds were sent, all places no longer safe. Ewan backs away, slowly, respectfully. Sable follows, that night. They make camp in a hollow between two limestone ridges. He builds no fire. The cold creeps into his bones, but it's safer than heat, safer than light. He writes for the first time in days, using his thigh as a table. The ink freezes on the nib before it dries on the parchment. He writes one word, taken, then. He crosses it out, rewrites it, stolen, still not right. Finally, he settles on the truth. Turned, because Myra is not gone. She's changed sides. Whether by force or something worse, he doesn't know. But she flew for another glove. And birds don't change masters without a reason. By morning, the forest smells like snow. It doesn't fall yet, but it's close. Thorn wakes with a sharp cry, wings flapping before he even opens his eyes. Sable launches without signal. Ewan barely rises before they're circling, high and fast. He knows that flight pattern, it's the search for watchers, something is close. He draws his blade, again, doesn't sheathe it, and walks east. The path disappears beneath thick underbrush. He pushes through it with one shoulder, not trying to be silent anymore. If they know he's here, hiding is pointless. Then he hears it. Feathers, not flapping, dot frising. Dozens of them, up from the trees ahead. Not wild birds, trained ones, and behind them a whistle, 3 notes, descending, dot his own call, but warped, lower, slower, as if mocked. Sable hisses. Ewan answers with silence. He moves faster now, ducking low, weaving through bramble and root until he reaches a clearing. It is empty at first. Then they step into view. 4 figures, each one cloaked, each one hooded, each one hooded, each one with a bird on their glove, but not just birds, his birds, or ones trained like his. One holds Myra. She looks thinner, colder, but she does not resist. Another holds a hawk he does not recognize, but its anklet bears the colors of the queen's own. The third figure holds no bird. Instead, he holds Ewan's whistle in his mouth. He plays the call again, 3 descending notes, mocking. Then he speaks. You trained them well. Ewan doesn't answer. They fly better now, the man says. Sharper, quicker, less fear. They're not yours, Ewan says. They weren't yours either, he replies. Not really. Birds don't belong to gloves. They belong to the sky, and to the ones who teach them how to survive it. Ewan steps forward once. Where did you learn our calls? The man smiles beneath his hood. You taught them, I listened. Ewan's grip tightens. He does not move, but the trees begin to shift. He is surrounded, not by men, by birds, perched in silence along the branches, watching, not wild, not free, trained. Dozens of them, maybe more. Their eyes do not blink, their talons Do not twitch. The man steps closer, holding out the whistle. You're not needed anymore, Falconer. The birds have chosen. Ewan says nothing. Instead, he lifts his hand slowly. Sable descends like a falling axe, straight into the man's chest. The whistle flies from his hand. Spinning, it lands at Ewan's feet. He picks it up and blows. Not the call they know. A new one, sharp, rising, breaking. The rhythm, the birds in the trees twitch. Some take flight, some cry out, some fall. Only Thorn and Sable remain steady, because they know what the new call means. It's not a command, it's a warning too. Run, and so they do. Ewan breaks west, through thorn and snow and bird call. The woods erupt behind him, feathers slash the air, talons tear bark. But they do not catch him, not yet, because he taught the birds, but he also taught them how to disobey. The river speaks all night, a low mumble of current and stone, dragging old branches and half-frozen weeds past the bank where Ewan keeps his back to the trees. Sleep does not come. He does not close his eyes. Not since Myra vanished. Not since he saw the other glove. The one that mimicked his own but wore cruelty like a second skin. Sable perches in a twisted ash tree behind him. Silent, her feathers pulled tight to her sides. Thorn sleeps half-curled near his pack, wings twitching occasionally like he dreams of air and talon. Ewan sharpens his knife again, not because it's dull, but because the rhythm steadies his hands. He can't forget the sound Myra made as she flew. Not panic, not warning, just silence. A bird obeying someone else. At sunrise, frost coats everything, the grass, the stones, the leather of his glove. The wind is sharp and carries no scent. That worries him. Sable hops closer. She senses it too. The air is too clean, like something has wiped it down. Ewan doesn't light a fire. He eats a handful of dried meat and nothing more. Thorn takes a strip and gulps it whole. They move east, along the river, following a trail that only the birds seem to know. Every so often, Sable lifts into the air, circles once, then returns. She is his compass now. By midday, they reach the old bridge at It's barely a bridge anymore, just 3 slats of warped timber and a single post still bearing a broken sigil. The other side is a different country, not by law, not by map, but by feel. The trees lean closer. The earth sinks lower. The light bends oddly through the canopy, like it's being filtered through water. Ewan crosses anyway. The forest on the far bank swallows them immediately. Sound shifts. Footsteps fall quieter. Birdsong fades to something thinner, more distant. Once, a branch snaps behind him. He turns, blade drawn, but there's no one. Only Sable watching him, her talons clenched a little tighter than usual. Hour later, he finds the trap. It's not for deer. It's not for wolves. It's made of bone and cord and something that smells faintly like burned cloves. At the center is a perch, a falconer's perch, but wrong. Too small, too narrow. Meant not for resting, but for display. There's no blood, that's worse. He marks the location with a strip of red cloth and moves on. Farther in, he begins to see signs feathers stuck to tree bark, scratch marks on low branches, the occasional glint of something metallic hidden beneath moss, a bird pin, a message tube, cracked and empty. Each step is quieter now, each breath a question. The wind has changed again. It no longer moves with the trees. It moves against them. Then Sable stops. Not pauses, stops. Frozen. Head tilted. Ewan follows her gaze and sees it. A wooden frame, simple, rough, barely standing. It's shaped like a falconer stand, but surrounded by stones in a circle, each marked with old runes and wrapped in feathers bound with ash string. It is not a medged arse. It is a shrine dot to what he doesn't know. Sable does not move. Thorn growls softly. He approaches. The air within the circle is different, colder, quieter, as if sound refuses to enter. Ewan kneels beside the central post. Beneath the soot and moss, he sees a mark, not Norse, not royal. A falcon's claw, etched into wood with a blade that shook. Next to it scratches, numbers, names, coordinates. He knows the places. The northern outpost, the western cliffs, the merchant pass, all places his birds were sent, all places no longer safe. Ewan backs away, slowly, respectfully. Sable follows, that night. They make camp in a hollow between two limestone ridges. He builds no fire. The cold creeps into his bones, but it's safer than heat, safer than light. He writes for the first time in days, using his thigh as a table. The ink freezes on the nib before it dries on the parchment. He writes one word, taken, then. He crosses it out, rewrites it, stolen, still not right. Finally, he settles on the truth. Turned, because Myra is not gone. She's changed sides. Whether by force or something worse, he doesn't know. But she flew for another glove. And birds don't change masters without a reason. By morning, the forest smells like snow. It doesn't fall yet, but it's close. Thorn wakes with a sharp cry, wings flapping before he even opens his eyes. Sable launches without signal. Ewan barely rises before they're circling, high and fast. He knows that flight pattern, it's the search for watchers, something is close. He draws his blade, again, doesn't sheathe it, and walks east. The path disappears beneath thick underbrush. He pushes through it with one shoulder, not trying to be silent anymore. If they know he's here, hiding is pointless. Then he hears it. Feathers, not flapping, dot frising. Dozens of them, up from the trees ahead. Not wild birds, trained ones, and behind them a whistle, 3 notes, descending, dot his own call, but warped, lower, slower, as if mocked. Sable hisses. Ewan answers with silence. He moves faster now, ducking low, weaving through bramble and root until he reaches a clearing. It is empty at first. Then they step into view. 4 figures, each one cloaked, each one hooded, each one hooded, each one with a bird on their glove, but not just birds, his birds, or ones trained like his. One holds Myra. She looks thinner, colder, but she does not resist. Another holds a hawk he does not recognize, but its anklet bears the colors of the queen's own. The third figure holds no bird. Instead, he holds Ewan's whistle in his mouth. He plays the call again. 3 descending notes, mocking. Then he speaks. You trained them well. Ewan doesn't answer. They fly better now, the man says. Sharper, quicker, less fear. They're not yours, Ewan says. They weren't yours either, he replies. Not really. Birds don't belong to gloves. They belong to the sky, and to the ones who teach them how to survive it. Ewan steps forward once. Where did you learn our calls? The man smiles beneath his hood. You taught them, I listened. Ewan's grip tightens. He does not move, but the trees begin to shift. He is surrounded, not by men, by birds. perched in silence along the branches, watching, not wild, not free, trained, dozens of them, maybe more. Their eyes do not blink, their talons do not twitch. The man steps closer, holding out the whistle. You're not needed anymore, Falconer. The birds have chosen. Ewan says nothing. Instead, he lifts his hand slowly. Sable descends like a falling axe, straight into the man's chest. The whistle flies from his hand. Spinning, it lands at Ewan's feet. He picks it up and blows. Not the call they know. A new one, sharp, rising, breaking. The rhythm, the birds in the trees twitch. Some take flight, some cry out, some fall. Only Thorn and Sable remain steady, because they know what the new call means. It's not a command, it's a warning too. Run, and so they do. Ewan breaks west, through thorn and snow and bird call. The woods erupt behind him, feathers slash the air, talons tear bark, but they do not catch him, not yet, because he taught the birds, but he also taught them how to disobey. They descend the ridge with the birds behind them, not following, not chasing, not even protecting, just watching. Ewan walks ahead. The man who still has not given a name follows with his torn shoulder wrapped in cloth made from his own hood. Thorn stays aloft, scanning. Sable rides low on Ewan's glove, talons twitching in time with his pulse. No words are exchanged. The trees offer no shelter, but neither do they resist. The forest has become something else, less obstacle, more witness. Branches sway toward the path, as if listening. Stones that once felt random now fall in strange symmetry, like teeth on a sleeping jaw. Ewan knows this isn't chance. The birds did not choose him out of nostalgia. They chose him because something is coming. At the base of the hill lies a forgotten road. Grass chokes its cracks. Bones line its sides. Not human, not animal. Bird bones. Too many, laid out in patterns that make no sense until he squints. Then he sees it. Each set forms a wing. One full span for every 100 paces. Skeletons of flight. Ewan kneels near one and touches the bleached tip of a falcon's radius bone. It breaks under his finger with a sound that doesn't belong in the daylight. Not crunch, not snap. A whisper. The man steps beside him. You hear them now. Ewan nods. Is this the path to the eyrie? He asks. The man tilts his head. It's the path to the end of it. They walk in silence. Hours pass. The sun does not move. Birds do not call. Even the wind holds its breath. Then a shadow moves ahead, huge, slow, like a mountain waking up. As they draw closer, the shape reveals itself. A wall. Not built. Formed. Out of wood and ash and wings. A gate made of fallen perches and shattered mews. A place where falconry came to die. Sable growls low in her throat. The man speaks. This is where the first falconers met the sky. Ewan frowns. I thought the first mews were built at Ronald's Crag. They were raised there, the man says. But here, they listened. He walks forward and places his palm against the wall. Feathers bloom where he touches. Black. Silver ghosts white. The gate opens without a sound. They enter. Inside is no village, no ruin, no shrine, only a circle of stone with a tree at the center. A tree made of talons, dead ones, a sculpture, a warning. Ewan approaches it slowly. The base is wrapped in old flight rings, dozens, maybe hundreds, some marked with the sigils of kings, others with nothing but burn lines. The tree groans as he nears, not from wind, From memory he places the whistle on its lowest branch. The sound that follows is not a note, it is breath from the stone around them, from the air above, from the bones. Beneath, the man kneels, not in submission. In welcome, the tree begins to tremble. Branches twist, roots break the earth. The ground opens at Ewan's feet, and he falls, not far, just deep, into a chamber lit by something, not flame, not sun, just light, alive and slow. A woman waits there, old, blind, but her voice cuts sharper than daggers. You brought the echo, she says. Ewan steadies himself. Who are you? I held the glove before you held breath. Are you the first? She laughs. I'm the last, who remembers the first. Sable lands beside her, unafraid. Thorn circles, then saddles. She reaches into a satchel at her side, pulls out a glove, Ewan's. Glove. Not the one he wears, the one from his dreams. The one with the embroidered edge and the blood-stained strap. The one that never fit quite right, but felt made for him. He takes it, it hums in his hand. Not sound, not warmth, just presence. Why did the birds choose me? The woman looks past him, toward the open ceiling above, where birds gather in perfect spiral. Because you are not their master, you are their memory. Ewan frowns. I don't understand. You don't need to. You only need to stand where others fled. Then she points behind him. He turns. The man has followed, but he isn't alone now. Others step from the shadows. Falconers, old, young, armed with claws, with cages, with broken calls and lost oaths. Some wear black feathers on their backs like cloaks. Some have birds with eyes sewn shut. Traitors.usu RPERS. Silent Glovers. UN lifts his hand. The whistle is gone. He doesn't need it. He opens his mouth and breathes. One long exhale, and the sky breaks open. Birds flood the chamber, not from above, from the walls, from the stones, from every gap and hollow where memory lived, to long in silence. The falconers scatter. Some scream, some kneel, some are torn away, not by talons, by wind, a wind made of wings. Ewan stands still. He does not command. He remembers that birds take his silence as signal. The fight is over before it begins. Only the man remains. He looks at Ewan with hollow eyes. You woke it, he says. I didn't mean to. It doesn't care. Then the tree behind them cracks, splits. From it rises something old, not alive. Not dead. A bird carved from obsidian and ash. Its wings span the chamber. Its eyes are fire. The woman speaks again. Flight was never about control. Ewan nods. It's about trust, and he lifts his glove. The obsidian bird lands on it, heavy, solid, real, till his hand shakes. But he does not lower it, and the sky above them goes. Quiet, all other wings fold. All other cries die, because the bird of memory has landed, and it waits for his next breath. The bird on his glove weighs more than stone. Not in mass, but in memory. Its feathers shimmer with heatless fire. Eyes like dying stars watch him without blinking. The chamber breathes with it, a slow pulse, like the rhythm of wings far above. A storm. Ewan doesn't dare speak, not yet. The obsidian bird is not a creature, it's a verdict. He lowers his arm carefully, muscles trembling with the weight of choice. The bird does not resist. It rides the descent as if it knew he would falter, yet waited anyway. Around them, silence grows sharp. The traitor falconers are gone, swallowed by birdsong and wind. Only the man remains, the one who followed Ewan, bled on the ridge, and knelt before the memory tree. He stares at the obsidian bird with something like longing or fear. Maybe both. You're not meant to hold it, he says softly. Ewan doesn't look at him. I didn't ask to, but it chose you. Ewan closes his eyes and speaks, not with voice, with thought. A question, simple and small. Why? The bird does not answer with words. It lifts one claw and taps his chest. Not hard, not to wound, to mark. A feather falls from its wing pure black. Edges glowing faint red and lands near his boot. The blind woman steps forward, her staff scraping against the stone. You've been named, she says. Ewan looks down. A sigil forms on his glove. Not stitched, burned dot, a spiral inside a wing. I don't know what that means, he says. No one does. That's how you know it matters. The obsidian bird lifts off his glove and lands atop the memory tree, which does not bend beneath it. Instead, the entire chamber hums, then pulses, then splits. Stone shears open like paper. A path rises, not a stair, a slope, smooth and carved with symbols only visible when breathed on. The slope leads down, into earth, into something older than falconry, older than THRONES. The woman points. That is the vault. The man flinches. You said it was sealed. It was, she says, until someone remembered how to knock. Ewan steps forward. Is this where the birds were made? No, she says. It's where they were asked. He doesn't understand, but his feet move anyway. Each step echoes like wing beats, not behind a head. That the vault opens into a vast hollow. Roof, no walls, only sky above and stone below. But the sky isn't the one he left. It's layered in shades of dusk, sunless, timeless, and the floor is not floor. It's feathers, millions of them, pressed into the rock like fossils. Frozen in motion, he kneels and touches one. It crumbles into ash and light. The obsidian bird lands ahead of him. The spiral on its chest begins to glow, and from the dark, others arrive, not birds, falconers, shades, figures, in robes, in armor, in silence. Some carry gloves, some carry bones, none speak. But all kneel. UN stands still. The light rises from the ground, from the air, from the breath in his lungs, and he sees it. The memory, the truth behind the craft. Falconry was never about command. It was about listening to what waited in the sky. Before falconers, before kingdoms, there were the first who watched. Men and women who saw the birds not as tools, but as echoes of something older, fragments of a song sung before time. The birds chose them, one by one, each glove given, not claimed, each bird born, not bred. But when the thrones came, they twisted the silence, trained it, caged it, made birds answer to whistles, not memory. And the bond broke. Ewan sees it all through the ash. The feathers, the silence, the war between silence and command, and now. The choice returns. He can go back, lead the falconers under the rule of kings, turn memory into obedience. Or he can do what the birds wants. Asked and listen. He turns to the obsidian bird. It lifts one wing underneath. A stone knife, not metal, not forged, carved from flight bone. He takes it and draws the blade. Across his palm, the blood that falls glows faint blue. It hisses when it touches the feathers below. A circle forms, and the vault breathes. The figures kneel. Lower, the bird bows, and Ewan speaks. One word, return. Wind explodes upward, not wind, wings. Every feather below him lifts, spins, sings, sings, not with voice, with truth. He has remembered what was forgotten, and now the birds remember too. The vault does not close, it expands. The feathers rise, not with the wind, but with willage, one spinning, glowing, shedding age, like bark off an old tree. They float upward into the open air, where dusk never ends and stars blink like watchful eyes. The sky doesn't stretch, above it hovers, pressing down in reverence. Ewan stands at the center, blood drying across his palm, the stone blade still gripped in his free hand. He doesn't tremble, not because he's fearless, but because something older now steadies him. Sable lands beside him. Thorn circles once, then joins. The obsidian bird watches from its perch on a pillar of air, silent, unmoving, waiting. He doesn't ask what comes next. He listens, and the vault answers, not with a voice, but with a change. The ground beneath his feet shifts, not crumbling, but revealing. A shape in the rock beneath the feathers setched in flame and silence. A circle, ringed by runes, pulsing like a heartbeat. The woman with blind eyes is gone. So is the man. Only the birds remain. Above, around, within dot one. They land near the edge of the glowing straws. Falcons, kestrels, owls, even vultures. Their talons do not scratch the stone. Their feathers do not stir the air. They are not visitors. They are the ancestors of motion. The moment he steps into the circle, they blink as one, and then they move. A wind gathers, drawn not from the world outside, but from memory itself. The feathers, still drifting through the sky, spiral inward, pulled by an invisible thread. They do not fall. They orbit faster, tighter, until the vault becomes a storm of birds that never touch. Their silence is louder than thunder. The obsidian bird takes flight again. It dives into the spiral. Its shadow peels back the stone. A doorway opens. No lock, no hinges, just possibility. Ewan looks down at the knife in his hand. Then, without hesitation, he drives it into the center of the circle. The blade vanishes. No clang, no echo, no blood, only light. And suddenly, he's not standing anymore. He's falling through silence, through feathers, through time. His boots never strike ground, but his feet land on soil. Cold, wet, alive, he single quotes in a forest. Again, but not the one he left. This one grows upside down. Branches stretch downward from the sky, roots coil like snakes from the clouds, and leaves fall upward. Sable and thorn are gone, but he hears them. Their calls ripple through the tressicos of something future, not past. A voice follows, low, metallic, not cruel, not kind, just old. You have opened what should sleep. Ewan turns. There is a man there, cloaked in wind, crowned in feathers, face masked in bone. A falconer, but not one of flesh. A keeper, you called the memory, it says. Now carry it. Ewan doesn't reply. The keeper steps closer. Its glove is made of midnight. Its bird is made of lightning. You will be hunted, the keeper says. I already was. You will be broken. I've broken. You will forget your name. Ewan lifts his hand. I'll remember theirs. At this, the keeper nods and reaches forward. From its cloak, it draws a second glove. Not stitched, forged, formed of sky thread and star ash. It slides onto Ewan's wounded hand like it always belonged there. The moment it touches skin, the world shakes. not trembles. Shakes. Trees snap upward. Soil flies, and the birds reel and remembered scream in unison. The glove is warm, not burning, guiding, and Ewan can feel the presence in it, not of the birds, of those who came before. He lifts it, and the forest inverts. Suddenly he's back in the vault, but now it's empty. The feathers are gone, the figures have vanished. Only the obsidian bird remains, and it bows, a final bow, then takes flight one last time. Its body breaks into hundreds of fragments. Each becomes a bird. Each flies toward a different corner of the sky, and he understands. The birds aren't messengers, they are messages, each one sent with a purpose, each one carrying a piece of what was lost, each one waiting for a falconer who listens. The vault closes, not with stone, with silence. The glove on his hand hums. He steps out. The forest beyond the ridge looks different now. Brighter, sharper, like it's waiting. He walks, not toward the village, not toward a king, toward the perch no one sees. The high tower above the cloud line, where the old falconers once sat and whispered to the wind. That's where he's going, not to command, but to hear. Because there's a difference between raising your glove and being worthy of what lands on it. The wind speaks in circles now. It coils around his shoulders, threads through his cloak, brushes his cheek with a chill that knows his bones. Ewan climbs without looking down. The path is not marked, but his steps follow grooves worn not by boots, but by wings. Each stone is a feather remembered. Each turn is a memory retold. Above him, the perch awaits, not a tower, not a keep, a pillar of rock that splits the clouds like a finger raised in defiance. The kind of place made not by masons, but by waiting stone, shaped over centuries to cradle only one kind of guest. A listener. He reaches the summit at dusk, or dawn. It doesn't matter now. Time bleeds thin this high. The sun doesn't rise. The stars don't set. Everything just hovers. At the peak is a single perch, worn wood, carved with spirals. A place where falconers once stood and spoke to nothing and waited for the nothing to speak back. He removes the glove, not to surrender it, to offer it. He sets it on the perch and kneels. The sky responds, first with silence, then with shadow, wings, thousands, not flapping, arriving, one by one. Birds gather on the ledges of the summit, hawks and owls, falcons and crows, eagles and ravens, species too old to name, too rare to catalogue. They do not cry, they do not threaten, they remember. They are here for the ending, not of Ewan, of forgetting. A final bird descends, not the obsidian one, it's gone now. This bird is flesh and feather, but inside it, Ewan knows, is memory. It lands on the glove, and the glove burns, not with fire, with clarity. The symbols etched into it ignite. One by one, the spiral, the echo, the wing, and then his name, not the one he was given in the village, the one he was called by the sky, watcher of wings, a name not spoken, aloud but known. And as the final light fades from the glove, it crumbles, feathers lift into the wind. The bird on the perch flaps once, twice, and takes off, but not alone. Every bird rises together as one sky, and Ewan stands, alone, yet not. The perch is empty. His hands are bare, but in his chest he carries every call, every silence, every falcon that ever soared without waiting for command. And somewhere, far below, in the halls of kings and courts. Someone will wonder why the birds are flying north again, why villagers are hearing calls they haven't heard in generations, why mews, once empty now, echo with presence, why silence itself feels full. Ewan doesn't return, he becomes the wind on the ridges, the shadow above fields, the name whispered by handlers who stop using whistles and start using stillness. He is the falconer who did not command. He is the one who listened, and in the end, that was enough. That was everything.